Welcome to the Guerrilla Social Work Podcast, your crackerjack clinical insurgents, pitting evidence against anecdotes. What's poppin', Guerrilla Social Workers? We're stoked to bring you another chit-chat with your hosts, Jeff Orange Cotton Candy Moore, and yours faithfully, Mace Warren. Jeff and I are both forensic psychotherapists that are in the business of fixing troubled individuals who have made some questionable life choices. We love sharing our misguided musings with all of you, and we thank you so much for your ongoing listenership. Today, the GSW Crew is presenting the latest and greatest news that affects the social work field. We talk a little nostalgia for childhood movies that just don't hold up, and Jeff finally gives me his long-awaited, albeit underwhelming New Year's dare. Now look, aren't you tired of being a selfish hoarder of all the joy and laughter you get from our show? Well, we have a solution for you. Give us a 5-star rating and share the show with a friend. It's the perfect way to spread the love and let others know that you're not the only one with good taste. Plus, think of all the good karma you'll get from sharing our hilarious banter and witty commentary. So don't be a podcast hermit. Share the love and give us a 5-star rating. Your ears and soul will thank you. And now, on with the show. I think we're rolling.
Word up.
Rolling.
Oh, Fred Durst.
What was that? What was that game that was on? Remember we used to play it over at Justin and Aaron's house, and it was
Road Rash.
No, from Sega.
Yeah,
yeah. No, that was a cool game.
Hell yeah, it was.
That didn't have.
They had a lot of good music on it.
Didn't have Limp Bizkit on it though. Yeah. No, it was a computer game, and you were like, was it? I can't remember. So you were a guy and you fought Fred Durst, but he wasn't. It wasn't Fred. It was like Dread Durst or something like that.
Remember that? Yeah,
it was. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but it was hilarious, and you ended up fighting him, and it was just. And gosh, man, I wish I knew the name of that.
That memory is completely not in my head, man. You sure it was me?
Yeah. You were there. It was when he lived with that guy Kevin down by and they lived and we were, gosh, what was the name of that? I guess it's irrelevant now. Yeah. But yeah, well,
we did way better about having an episode not 4 months since our last one.
Oh yeah.
So
way
3
better.
weeks deep? Are we 3 weeks from our last episode?
Yeah, I guess sickness and scheduling conflicts haven't plagued us. Yeah, for sure. So, dude, how long are you gonna let your hair go?
My wife cut 3 inches off it.
And is that just cut again? A trim or?
Yeah, so here's the thing.
What's the intention here? I got to know.
So
I assume there's like 2 people on YouTube who want to know too.
Yeah,
because they've seen you evolve into a full-fledged vagrant.
Yeah, I was gonna say here comes a bum comment. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and you did caution me. I remember, by the way, about the dangers of having a big beard and big hair. Mm-hmm. I know.
You legit, like right out of the gate, look psycho. Every bad mugshot that you've ever seen is a psycho with an unkempt beard and hair all over the place, and immediately you think crazy person.
Have you seen Nick Nolte's mugshot? I think is it him? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Right.
Yeah. So I figure I have 3 or 4 years worth of still having hair, and I've had that, dude. I've had the same haircut since I was 15.
Yeah, but if it works, it works.
I know, and I can go back to it.
Yeah.
And but I mean, because again, once I go bald or lose hair, then I have to go bald. But I just wanted to see what long hair looks like, and the wife likes it.
Wait, what's your over under on having hair? When do you think it's going to be gone?
I don't know. I figure a few years.
Oh,
my dad
gone? George Costanza gone?
No.
Okay.
No. Gone to me is thinning to the point that it's that a comb over would look bad.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, I've already got a high forehead, but like it's still pretty thick, but
Okay.
I just figure, I don't know. So yeah, just trying long hair. I look great in a beanie also.
Yeah, it does. I have noticed that like hats, if you're wearing a hat and there's a little flare out of the bottom, that always looks kind of good. Yeah. But so you're not going like full, I don't know, Liver King type.
I've already trimmed it.
Oh, okay.
Like, a couple times.
But you're supposed to a little bit, aren't you? Or
yeah. She shaped it. Because it was getting like bushy. It looked stupid for a minute. I had like the Mufasa look going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she's trimmed it along the way, but I don't know. I just keep messing with it. I'm sure I'll get sick of it and trim it.
Well, I mean, no kudos. But my thing is, I tried one time and I didn't even get like nearly the length you are, and then I was like, "F this, dude," you know. And then I've had. But John's talked to me about that before. He's always like, yeah, our buddy John, he's like, you should grow your hair. I'm like, no, it won't work. I was like, I got this spike thing and that's all I got. And it's never going to go different.
Well, John, so my wife's so upset about this because like she's been trying to convince me to grow my hair out since I started dating her.
Oh,
yeah, really? She's got a thing for dudes with long hair. And
okay.
So I've never had long hair, so I wonder why she's with me. But yeah, she's always been trying to get me to grow it out. And
long hair elsewhere? Or?
No count. Right here. Yeah. Right on the beard. It's the beard. It was at fireworks at my house last July. John like showed me a picture of some jacked redhead with Viking hair and all along, and he's the one that kind of pushed me over the threshold to grow it out. And she's like, "Really? I've been working on you for 20 years, and now
he has that way. He has that way about him.
He does.
We got to get him on here. You know, I think I saw that picture. It is rather compelling, though. I mean, it is for sure. So, hey, whatever happened to your New Year's dare for me? I had one for you, but you never had one for me.
All right. Well, I've been working on it. And I know. Well,
dude.
All right. I know what it is that I want you to do. It's just like I don't want to have to explain myself because it ruins it. So I've been like debating in my head how to like pitch it to you in a way that works with what my goal is.
Is this like you're going to try to get me into a gay encounter with you, or
kind of? Yeah, I mean, it's not that.
Your preface is moving in that direction.
Yeah, it does have something to.
Nothing against gay dudes. I just
you just were feeling that I was grooming you.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, I just
and you're pretty slick. You're hard to manipulate, and so I'm working on it.
Wait, so is this one of those New Year's dares I won't even know about till it already happened?
No. Here, so. All right, here I'll just come out with it, and I just don't know how it works, but like, I want you to spend 8 hours.
8 hours, okay.
Picking up trash on the freeway.
I could do that. I could do that today.
And I don't, but only I can know about it.
So I'd have to be in disguise, though.
Yeah, I mean, if people drive by and recognize you, it's fine.
Oh, okay. But wait, but people know about it now already. You ruined it.
But you haven't decided if you're going to take it or not, though. And I mean, you maybe you'll do it, maybe you won't do it. But it has to be. So this is why I was hesitating telling you, is because like this right here is like now I've talked about it on the podcast, but I don't know how else to pull it off. But that's what I want you to do.
That's not much of a dare. Like that's
what I want you to do, though.
Okay. That's pretty easy to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, going hunting isn't much of a dare. That just sounds fun, kind of hard but fun.
Yeah, but there's something behind this, though. There's a nefarious plot to this, though.
There's a plot.
Yeah,
nefarious.
Picking up trash is not the end game. Like, I know there's something else behind that, which I will figure out.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I'll figure it out and then use it against you.
Machiavellian,
dude.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I was speaking of plots. Have you ever I was gonna ask you about this because it's kind of good for setting because we're doing some news today, and it has like, these are some stories that you and I cultivated. We'll probably get to like 2 or whatever. But have you noticed, like, and maybe this is just part of, getting into your midlife or whatever, but So when you were a kid, right, you'd watch a movie and it was just a banger, right? Like it was super sweet, and you watched it a bunch. And
Lionheart,
and you loved it. With Jean-Claude Van Damme, it's a good one,
loved
right? But then as you turn into an adult, you go back and watch it, and you're excited because of the idea of nostalgia. But then you watch it, and it just doesn't hold up very well. So in the Jean-Claude Van Damme realm, Lionheart, all right. But one that fell apart completely was Bloodsport. That was just...
That's a good example. Lionheart is a better movie than Bloodsport over the test of time.
Right.
But man, what a cool concept Bloodsport had. You know, this kumite, people get together. Plus, at the time, we thought it was true.
Yeah,
it got advertised as being true.
It's like, damn, Frank Dukes, dog.
What a stud.
Yeah, and then...
just go into the forest and fight people in some kumite.
Yeah.
Like, and
then you just found out it was fake.
It's fake. He's a fraud. He's a charlatan. The fight scenes are cheesy. The acting is horrific.
Yeah.
The American wrestler guy is not as cool as I remember.
But when you were cool and when you were young, it was cool, and you saw Jean-Claude Van Damme doing that weird spinning, jumping back kick.
Every his same move,
and
like
everybody and every dude was so dazed they just watched him kick them.
Yeah, they just watch his foot coming towards his head, and they don't move. These top level martial artists that are like the best of the best in the world that are fighting to the death don't think to put their hands up.
Yeah, but dude, I got two movies that I'm just going to tell you the plot of them, but I'm not going to give you the names of the characters or anything. And I need you, and these are likely from our childhood. I think you'll get them. Well, one of them with relative ease. The other one's maybe a little bit more ambiguous. But
I'm not good at guessing movies, man. I'll try. I'll play.
This first one is warm up. Should be a little bit obvious. Okay, so
Mrs. Doubtfire.
No, okay. Although that one's pretty damn creepy when you break it down. So it says, this movie is set in a mystical land where unicorns roam and the forces of good and evil are in constant conflict. The story follows a young hero who is in love with a beautiful princess who becomes a target of a powerful evil force. The devil orders his minions, including goblins and other dark creatures, to cut the horn from a living unicorn while it is enchanted by the princess, plunging the world into eventual eternal darkness. Eventually, the devil also seeks to capture the princess to use her to destroy the purity and goodness of the unicorns. The hero embarks on a perilous journey to rescue his beloved and restore the unicorn horn with the help of a band of loyal allies that includes elves and fairies. They travel through enchanted forests and treacherous mountains, encountering magical creatures and facing dangerous obstacles along the way. As they approach the location where the princess is held captive, they must evade the devil, who seeks to prevent them from freeing the princess and mending the unicorn, restoring the balance between good and evil.
Man, I was going to say Never Ending Story, but it's not that. It's the what's that called? I don't remember.
I'll give you a hint. We just featured the main character in a pretty sweet motorcycle jump.
I knew. Yeah, I remember what I joked about it being called.
Yeah,
but I'm not saying that.
It's like the welfare Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Yeah. What's that called again?
So Legend is the name of that movie. Okay, now here's the thing about that. If you go back and watch Legend today, that shit holds up. It's pretty good.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it was really low budget, the special, but you didn't really need special effects. I mean, it was just, people doing crazy shit. And by the way, the best looking devil in film history, I may add, Tim Curry. That was pretty sweet devil.
I don't remember what he looks like. Was he a handsome fellow?
Oh yeah. I can pull up a picture of him as we're going here. Yeah. Want me to show you?
Let's see this handsome devil.
Yeah. He's
this handsome devil.
Yeah. You guys catch that? Yeah, he's a. Let's see. Tim.
Welfare Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, or Western Family Lord of the Rings. One of those two.
Yeah, that's Great Value Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Wish.com Lord of the Rings.
Oh, dude, look at that right there.
That's not,
that is not him.
That's handsome.
That
looks like the South Park devil.
Here, let me get this. So that is not what we're talking about. This let's just check this out right here. Hopefully this doesn't bring me to some. What is this? Oh, there it is. Just show me the picture, dude.
Careful.
There we go. I know.
It seriously looks like the South Park devil, man.
That's pretty sweet, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty sweet devil. I mean, if you get right down to it.
The horns seem too big for his head.
Yeah. I mean, it is pretty. He does
Like,
some.
that's the size of horns that you'd see on like a buffalo.
Yeah. There's some sweet.
Satan, though.
I love you always get into the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Anyway, so that's
right.
one. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Now this other one, it's probably a little bit more popular, but and much darker though when you get right down to it. Okay, so see if you can remember this one. This dark film tells the story of a teenage girl whose little brother is kidnapped by a mysterious and malevolent dictator of a foreign country. The despot has made it his personal mission and life's work to kidnap children at a young age, to indoctrinate them and make them part of his personal band of warriors. Out of desperation, without her parents' knowledge, the girl runs away from home and attempts to confront the antagonist. The sadistic kingpin gives the teenage girl the illusion that she can simply walk into a stronghold to retrieve her brother. However, the sinister tyrant has constructed a complex series of deadly traps and puzzles that force the girl to confront her deepest fears and make gruesome choices to stay alive. Determined to rescue her brother, the girl embarks on a dangerous journey accompanied by a group of rebels who offer her assistance and guidance. As she progresses deeper into the malevolent snarl, the girl discovers that the dictator's intentions are far more sinister than she initially realized. Along the way, the girl encounters a variety of surreal and often morbid trials and challenges, testing her bravery, resourcefulness, and determination. The wicked tyrant attempts to kill her by dropping her from great heights, stabbing her, grinding her to death with a jumbo mining drill, poisoning her with hallucinogens, forcing her to cross a literal river of feces and rot, blowing her up with explosives, crushing her, and shooting her with a gun. The villain, who is much older than the girl and clearly unstable, becomes increasingly obsessed with her and attempts to seduce and manipulate her into becoming his bride. Despite his efforts to undermine her resolve, the girl remains focused on rescuing her brother and foiling the antagonist's nefarious plan. As the girl draws closer to the final confrontation with the antagonist, the stakes become higher than ever, and she must use all of her strength and cunning to overcome the seemingly insurmountable obstacles in her path. With its haunting visuals, haunting themes, and unforgettable characters, this movie is mesmerizing an unforgettable journey into the dark realms of the human psyche.
This was some shit you watched as a kid?
Oh, yeah.
What? I know I haven't seen that.
Oh, you have. It's a little banger called Labyrinth.
What? Is it?
You've seen Labyrinth, right?
Uh-uh.
You've never seen Labyrinth with David Bowie?
No.
And oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
Everybody watching this would know like what this is. And dude, it's so funny because it's a kid show and it's about, and the only difference is all that is true. Everything about that is 100% true.
What the hell?
It's a Jim Henson movie though. Yeah. And what's the thing that makes it not evil is Muppets. They throw Muppets in there and all like, and
wow.
You know, dance magic, dance
totally see
magic.
what you're
I was
saying,
like,
man.
hold on, dude. Like,
just...
that is a 16-year-old girl, and he kidnaps her little brother, and then he puts her through all these trials and tribulations, going through the labyrinth. Tries to kill her multiple times. She literally does have,
then tries to seduce.
Yeah, she literally does cross a river of shit. By the way,
I was just going to ask about the river.
Yeah, they call it the bog of eternal stench. It's just shit, and if you ever get it on you, then you smell forever, according to legend. And they have to cross that
Labyrinth.
Yeah, labyrinth, and then she eventually gets to his castle where all his little warriors come out, because if he kidnaps her brother, then he will so it's a baby, by the way. If he kidnaps her little brother, then he will eventually become a goblin, you know, part of his minions. And then all these goblins try to kill her with cannons and gunfire. There's one part where there's a group of them who try to rip her limbs off, and then at the end he tries to seduce her. But dude, you got to see this. I got a clip for us.
Is it? Well, I guess it's Jim Henson. It's made for kids.
Yeah, you haven't ever seen Labyrinth, dude. Everybody's gonna hate you for never seeing Labyrinth.
I don't.
It was 100% made for kids. Yeah. Although it did have Jennifer Connelly in it, who, by the way, has aged very well in the new Maverick. If you have not seen that,
I've seen that one.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's David Bowie.
That's David, and like, so here's the end scene of this. He has one of the best lines ever in this. I'll get you to there, but okay. This is just a 2-minute clip. You'll see what I'm talking about. Look at that creep. 50-year-old dude, 16-year-old girl.
Give me the child.
Sarah, beware.
By the way, is that bulge 100% necessary? I mean, he was sporting yoga pants before Lululemon even existed. See what I'm saying?
It just adds to the whole problem with this show to begin with.
And he's walking around this whole time about this teenage girl. Well, watch this.
Okay.
I have been generous up until now, but I can be cruel.
Generous? What have you done that's generous?
Everything. Everything that you wanted, I have done. You asked that the child be taken. I took him. You cowered before me. I was frightened. I have reordered time. I have turned the world upside down, and I have done it all for you. I am exhausted from living up to your expectations.
Look at that seduction.
Isn't that generous?
Through dangers untold and hardships unnumbered,
This is some limerick that's going to kill him or
fought
something.
their way here to the castle beyond the Goblin City. For my will is as strong as yours, and my
Stop. Wait. Look, Sarah. Look what I'm offering. Your dreams.
Listen to this creep.
and my kingdom is great.
I ask for so little. Just let me rule you. And you can have everything that you want.
Just let me what?
Just let me rule you, and you can have everything you. I ask for so little.
Some grooming,
What a creep, dude.
I ask for so little. Just let me rule you. And you can have everything that you want.
Here comes the best line ever. Watch.
Kingdom is great. Damn. I can never remember that line.
Just fear me, love me, do as I say, and I will be your slave.
Fear me, love me, do as I say, and I'll be your slave.
Dude, how bad. I'm telling you, that's a kid show though, and you just so it's about all of that. Then you throw Muppets in there and they're like, dance magic, dance. You're like, Jesus, dude, this is for kids. Come on.
Talk a little about overcoming victims' resistance.
I know, dude. So speaking of hot sex offender news, Labyrinth, look.
It sounds like a playbook.
Yeah, it's on Netflix now, folks.
I for sure haven't seen that shit.
Oh yeah, you should give it a shot.
I don't know.
I mean,
it doesn't look good at all.
No, when you were a kid, it's got some cool stuff going on in it. Yeah. Like
It can't be one of the. It could not hold up. Now, if I've never seen it, I go watch it.
Did you ever see Dark Crystal with Jim Henson?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, Labyrinth is better than that, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. Like, I mean, if you don't make it through, you'll get the general idea.
I think I got
quickly.
the general idea, but
Yeah, I gave you a good enough description.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
So what stories did you put together for us here?
Well, I got the one. I think I don't know if it was last sex offender news or the one previous. I deja vu. I think we talked a little bit about the whole death penalty for sex offenders discussion, and now just Ron DeSantis has put forward that as a bill, and I don't know if it's legit or not. On the way here, I was like just seeing if there's any other news on the whole, in Florida, putting forth the death sentence for sex offenders, and the New York Post had a video saying that it's passed, and it was like a 30-second clip, and I'm assuming that it was actually the New York Post, but that was something I was hoping that we get some almost real time finding out if that actually passed. That's pretty significant.
We can look at this clip is not super old. Let's just take a peek here.
This is nothing to do
obviously
with
the lanes reopen on I-75 near Mile 78, but hey.
Also, Florida lawmakers are pushing to expand the death penalty here in the Sunshine State.
So one proposal gaining steam in the legislature would put convicted child rapists to death. Fox 4 Investigates' Ryan Kruger joins us live with the latest details. And Ryan, this bill cleared a very powerful committee.
Do you think these two girls are friendly to each other off screen?
I'm not catching that with their body language. The girl on the right is kind of angling away from the girl on our left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's paused, and I'm looking at their faces, and it could just be where you screen capture faces, but right there, no, they've had some talks back in the break room that didn't go well.
Not to each other, to coworkers.
Not to each other. They wouldn't confront each other.
Did you see what Nadine was wearing today?
In the legislature would put convicted child rapists to death. Fox 4 investigates Ryan Kruger joins us live with the latest details. And Ryan, this bill cleared a very powerful committee yesterday.
Yeah, and it passed that committee unanimously. In fact, one of the people supporting this bill is herself a survivor of child sexual assault. She says that pain never goes away. Now, this bill would allow for the death penalty to be a sentencing option for someone convicted of capital sex crimes involving a child under the age of 12. The Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, along with Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty, have both come out against this bill. They argue courtrooms are a place for justice, not vengeance. But Senate Minority Leader Lauren Book of Broward County, herself a child sexual assault survivor, gave an impassioned speech during committee meetings.
There is no statute of limitations that a victim suffers. This is a life sentence that is handed down to young children. We're talking about the youngest of the young in this bill. I was one of those kids.
Wow.
Bill now heads to the full Senate for a vote. Experts believe if it does pass, the governor will sign it into law. However, there is one big issue with this bill. Critics say it's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court ruled 15 years ago on this very topic. I'm going to dive into that coming up on Fox 4 News at 6.
All right.
Dude, that if you're a listener, that the Lauren Book, that senator, that woman that was just talking, was she made a pretty prominent feature in a film called Untouchable, which the two of us reviewed in like a 3-part long drawn out podcast.
It was worth it.
Yeah. And so Untouchable, just as like a quick recap, it kind of examines the impact of, I guess society's view and impact of sex offenders and sex offender laws. And so it kind of does, it dives into the lives of sex offenders and shows what they go through. And then it dives into the lives of a victim of sexual offending. And the victim in this case was the woman you just saw there, Lauren Book, when she was much younger. And her father, I think his name is Ron, I want to say, Book. And he's a mover. He's a power play type of guy, big deal in Florida. And he's done a lot to really cramp down on what sex offenders can and can't do in Florida. Mm-hmm. And she was the impetus for him to put forward a lot of the laws that Florida sex offenders deal with. And now, it looks like, I didn't know she was a senator. It looks like she has gone beyond the charity that she had.
Yeah. It seemed
Fight
like
for Lauren or whatever.
Yeah. It seemed also like at one point or another she was not necessarily compassionate, but like maybe towards the end it almost seemed like she was kind of backing off a little bit, like
lowering the intensity a little. Right.
But obviously not that's not happening.
Yeah, pushing forward death penalty is about as high intensity as it gets.
Well, so clearly now, like they're, it sounds like they've at least passed a committee, but that doesn't mean it's put into law yet, right?
I don't know. That's what I was trying to figure out.
I wonder, I never understand. I mean that, what is that thing that when we were kids?
How to pass I
want to say Jailhouse Rock, but that Schoolhouse
We're thinking
Rock?
of the same thing.
Is that what it is?
I know the song.
Yeah. I was like, wait, what happens with bills?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah. Real quick, real-time search. The article that I saw.
Should I put in Florida?
Yeah. Florida sex offender death penalty. And maybe just.
I got it.
Okay.
Let's just check it out here. Oh, here we go.
Passes bill.
Wow. That is the New York Post though, for sure. So here we go, just to make sure that we're not. Florida lawmakers have approved legislation backed by Governor Ron DeSantis that would permit the death penalty for those convicted of sexually abusing children. The bipartisan proposal, bipartisan too, which passed by a vote of 34-5 late Tuesday, will allow juries to hand out death sentences by votes of at least 8-4. So not even unanimous.
Yeah.
After previously requiring unanimity. The bill, which passed the Florida House of Representatives 95-14 last week, and which Ron DeSantis is expected to sign, would apply those convicted of abusing a child under the age of 12.
Oh, interesting.
My view is
so it's specific. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, my view is some of these people that will be a serial rapist of 6-7-year-olds. Ron DeSantis told Good Morning Orlando Monday, I think the death penalty is the only appropriate punishment when you have situations like that.
So he's making the case that sex offenders will continually do it again and again and again when offending against younger children, and so it's like a protective mechanism. That seems to be the case that he's arguing, right? So I think the death penalty is the only appropriate punishment when you have situations like that. So yeah, looks like DeSantis is making the case that it's a protective mechanism, and
yeah, right on here it says.
There, look at read that quote down there.
State Senate Minority Leader Lauren Book and State Senator Jonathan Martin, the bill's co-sponsors, argued that those who sexually harm kids are likely to repeat their crime and deserve the ultimate penalty. Once a predator has a child ensnared, they will harm that child over and over and over again, Book said, and then move on to another innocent child.
So I think that this is my just hot take here. I think that reason might belie the actual motivations there. It does seem like that their intentions are to really show the gravity of sexual offending and say, that we want to levy the biggest sanction possible. Because like, if it was just about reducing recidivism, they would just say life imprisonment.
Right. So
if the goal is to just cut recidivism, you would just say life imprisonment. So the death penalty is a step beyond that. And it seems like it might be a little vengeance based.
Well, true, but so what's the purpose of that though? So I mean, like, not that I'm like advocating for child rapists or anything, but I'm not, and I also don't want to start comparing like rape cases either, because that just gets into a weird, dynamic. Like for example, if I don't know, I mean, I've heard some pretty horrific stories of adult rape as well, and kidnapping and mutilation and stuff like that, but no death involved, no murder involved, and then people are sent to prison for however long they're sent to prison. So I think a case for life in prison without the possibility of parole tends to make sense. I mean, but I guess if the goal is vengeance at that point, then yeah, I don't know. A lot of people would say, well, yeah, anybody who touches a kid that way deserves to die, right?
And you would say that the idea would be, I don't know, isn't the death penalty kind of a way, in addition to like eye for an eye, but isn't it kind of a way of like, this is society's way of expressing a rejection of the pure horror of, killing somebody or raping somebody? It's like there has to be a way for society to offer the ultimate condemnation of a behavior, and the things that we as a society have probably almost unanimously decided that are kind of the worst of the worst things would be like murder and child rape. And so it seems like that's the intention. It's interesting. That doesn't sound good though to a big section of voters that would push back and say this is about vengeance. That I think a way to make that appealing is to make it about reducing recidivism. It's just that if you look a little beyond that and say life in prison would meet that end. Well,
yeah, I mean, for sure their recidivism is reduced if they're dead. I mean, obviously,
unquestionably,
yeah. But I wonder if life in prison without the possibility of parole serves the same purpose, right? And I get that, like,
which purpose, of recidivism or of expressing the horror of a
recidivism,
Okay.
And if that's ultimately your goal, then it serves that purpose. I mean, nobody's ever been able to make sense to me about like deterrence, as things being a deterrent, because it's difficult for me to understand how do you measure that? Like, so how do you measure a person who sees? So, for example, if we were living in Florida and we were aspiring sex offenders, right, and we saw a guy convicted of, sexually abusing somebody under the age of 12, and then this was subsequently put to death, how are they going to measure that we saw that and then we chose not to engage in any criminal behavior? How is that measured?
You're asking a question that I had the same question, dude. I have the exact same question. And I know that in our field, we get told very often that deterrence isn't an effective method for reducing crime. And
how would you know either way, though?
Well, I don't think they're defining deterrence that way. So when I think about deterrence, I'm thinking about it the way that you are. That there exists some potential offenders out there that upon discovering that now I can be put to death for this behavior, that I'm not going to do it. And to me, that's deterrence. And I think researchers in our field are measuring that concept differently. They're not using it the way that you and I are thinking about it, because you can't measure that. How would you measure that? That's the Minority Report shit.
Well, yeah, like, do you send out qualitative surveys?
It would have to be, but I don't think that's what happens.
Right. So, and maybe, I've always wondered about that. Or is deterrence more like a measure of recidivism and just turned into a different word?
I think it's that. Yeah. They're looking at, I think that's what they're doing, is they're looking at recidivism rates before and after, and deciding if after the implementation of a bill, if the recidivism rates are about the same, they would say that, well, criminals aren't scared of this because they're still doing it at the same rates. But that fails to account for all the people that kept it to themselves the entire time and never once.
Well, I'd be curious about that, if that's really how they look at deterrence, right? Because honestly, I know sometimes we get into like seminars and trainings and conferences and everything, and then people are saying we have all the research in the world say deterrence doesn't work, and sometimes I feel like it's just me and you, like, how do you know? Because if deterrence is truly what we just described, like would-be criminals choosing not to engage in that behavior, and that, like, yeah, I've engaged in crimes to the degree that I need to be locked up for a variety of reasons, some of which is the loss of my freedom, but nobody else knows that. I've never been asked why that is. So certainly my data point is irrelevant, you know what I mean? And I would assume everybody else's is. And and you would think that a survey of the general populace and saying, why don't you commit crime, like a qualitative survey or something like that, would be pretty ubiquitous in the research, but I've just never seen that, right? So then if it's recidivism, well then, yeah, that's true. Just locking somebody up and punishing them harshly and then releasing them back into the community without appropriate intervention. Yeah, well, of course we know the research has shown that that's ineffective way of deterring future crimes. It doesn't do much, but it's never presented in that way. Like deterrence is never talked about that way. You know what I mean?
That's been a problem that I've had with it for a long time. And here's the thing is, like, you read about it you hear about it at a seminar, read about it in like a social work journal, deterrence doesn't work. But then I go straight anecdotal and I'll think to myself, has deterrence worked on me? And so this is a question that I want to pose, and you don't have to answer it. Maybe I'll just pose it to the listeners in general. If you, as a listener in your lifetime, have consumed more than your share of an alcoholic beverage in a given night, did you sleep on your friend's couch rather than drive home because you liked your friend's couch? Or did you sleep on your friend's couch because you didn't want to pick up a DUI? That a lot of people are scared of getting that DUI. I know a lot of people that the reason that they don't drive home after a night out on the town is it's nothing to do with public safety. I mean, some people think that way, but almost every time in my experience, people that I've talked to that have been drinking too much, now you just get an Uber. But yeah, a lot of couches have been slept on at house parties because people don't want to pick up the DUI.
Sure.
That's deterrence, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that would fit right within the same reason that when you're driving down the freeway and your Waze says police reported ahead and you slow down, I think that would also be guided by deterrence. But really a lot of that is we just do a quick cost benefit analysis and we say, the juice isn't worth the squeeze here. Going 5, 6, 7, 10 over the speed limit really isn't worth the time, hassle, and money it's going to cost to get a ticket. So I'll slow down temporarily. And then when I feel like the coast is clear, I'll speed back up.
Yes.
I think that's deterrence. And so, yeah, to some degree that works, but I'm saying like, that's where I think it's all really, how do you ever measure that though? Like, how is that ever put into a scientific paper where that's research? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Super limited in, and maybe that's one of those things that like there isn't a good way to measure what you and I are after. Mm-hmm. I mean, like with sex offenses, you know, we talk to a lot of dudes and, in advance of their crime, a lot of them seem reasonably certain they're going to get away with it. They don't think they're going to get caught.
Yeah.
And sometimes they take measures to not get caught, but like the penalties for committing a sex offense are really quite stiff, and offenders find ways when they're in the, kind of that mindset to make it okay with themselves to commit an offense, and then they do what they can to manipulate their environment or the victim to try to get away with it. And then they do it. And it, you know, it just, I don't know. I mean, of course, that's why I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. Cause like on one hand, I could see people like, okay, yeah, you know, they really want to engage in a sexual behavior, but then knowing that the ultimate penalty is on the other side for them, that it might not engage in it. But then again, we have clients that they don't think that far ahead.
Right.
I don't know how they make that claim.
Well, so this is, I guess maybe we need to read a little bit more about it, but, and I think we have more on this article, but that's what I'm kind of curious about is, what's their overall intention of passing this, and what's the hope that it says? Maybe it says, Book argued that execution guards against the targeting of additional victims. Or did I miss something there? I don't know. Here we go. Okay. Pedophile behavior has been deemed highly repetitive to the point of compulsion, she said. State Senator Rosalind Osgood, one of the 5 who opposed the bill, said she agreed that sexual attacks on kids are severe crimes, but told fellow lawmakers that she struggled with imposing the death penalty in general due to her religious beliefs. Well, the bill also runs up against Supreme Court precedent. In 2008, the High Court ruled 5-4 in Kennedy v. Louisiana that the death penalty could not be levied against child rapists or anyone who committed a crime in which the victim did not die. However, DeSantis suggested this week that the current Supreme Court, made up of 6 conservatives and 3 liberals, might be open to overturning that decision. The death penalty controversy made headlines in Florida last year after a jury sparked Parkland school shooter Nicholas Cruz from execution, or spared rather, Parkland shooter Nicholas Cruz from execution instead of handing down a life sentence. That just goes into, anyway, so that's not really part of this, but, so I guess so is the intention, if you I guess I would be curious on their side of this, is if they passed a law that was so severe that it may make them think twice. Is that maybe what the intention of the theory behind this is?
That's what's being said. And I'm not calling them liars. It's just, I think that's maybe the more politically favorable way of pitching it, is to say this is to reduce recidivism. That might be part of their motivation, but it does seem, look, like, you know, Miss Book has been the victim of a severe amount of sexual abuse. She describes it in detail in that Untouchable documentary. And like, God, wouldn't she be curious to know, like, if does she want that levied against her perpetrator?
Well, I think you have. It's kind of weird after a person is brought into the criminal justice system and they are put to death. Like it gets really morally weird.
Yeah. I
don't know if I was thinking about this because I was thinking about the death penalty and really, you know, what does that do? I think the other thing I'd want to know about this, of course, because if a lot of people would say, I do not care about that person who hurt a child in that regard. Okay, fine. I mean,
Right.
You can't really argue with that opinion.
No.
Plus, it's an opinion, and there's trying to convince somebody otherwise is pointless.
Right.
However, there are some practical realities to that. And so one of the things would be, okay, well, let's say we do provide life in prison with parole. And I say provide because there's a cost associated with that, right? You and I very well know that clients who are in the criminal justice system, particularly in incarceration, they're going to be, I mean, they have all their medical stuff taken care of, their food taken care of. It's not as if they go into some gulag or something like that, there is ways of developing a new life and living in there, albeit it's not preferable to a lot of people, right? But there's ways of getting by in there, and everybody, not you can live a happy and fulfilling life, but you will lead a life, it'll be much lesser, and all your freedoms are revoked, of course, but there's a cost to that. And I know it's somewhere around, I think close to $30,000 a year that it costs to house an inmate in prison. Now, the question I would have is, okay, compare that to the cost of housing somebody on death row, and then what the costs of exhausting the appeals process is, and then getting down to the point of execution, what the cost of that is, right? And then you compare those two. And I say on a logistical front, well, which one's more expensive at that point? People need to take that in consideration too, right? And maybe it is. Maybe the death, I've heard that the death penalty is exceedingly more expensive in terms of the overall cost. And so maybe it is, right? So now it's like, okay, well, it's going to cost us, but I don't think you'd ever hear from somebody ever that it'll make me feel better when he's dead. You would never hear that from a lawmaker. You'd never hear that from a politician. You just couldn't hear that.
Even though that's probably the motivation.
Well, and honestly, I don't know how far from, dude, it's, did I show you that video it was a video of, it was, I don't know if I showed it on here. It was a video of, and maybe I don't even have it, but it was a video of, oh geez, we're like not even where we should be. It was a video of these guys who were, have you heard about the whole problem with dudes in California stealing catalytic converters?
No.
So you know what a catalytic converter is, right? So I can pull it up, but there's some pretty gnarly videos of these dudes, and this is like
getting dope from them or what?
No. Well, they'll fence it, they'll sell it, right? Because there's precious metals in there, and it's a pretty lucrative market. And how do you spell catalytic converter theft? Here we go. And it's pretty notorious right now. This is the one that I wanted you to see here. This is pretty crazy. So these dudes right here are legit. They're rolling up to this house in broad daylight, and they've already attempted. There's another news story. They tried to get under this dude's truck before and steal it. So this is in California, broad daylight, but look what happens to these guys. Think about it. They just have sawzalls sitting there, right?
I see.
Broad daylight. Watch this. Look how loud that is. Car alarm goes off. They get a little spooked. They're like, "No, we're good." Cars driving by.
It is so brazen.
Yeah. Little do they know, though.
They just sawing into it right now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh, they get shot
with paintballs.
Oh, that's amazing.
Get that mother.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look at him. Yeah, they're getting the license plate number and everything.
Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, dude. Okay.
I guys got lit up.
I know. It's nuts, right? So then, but the crazy thing about that though is, so they did that, and then they I was looking at some stories that were like associated with that, and there was like a story of a guy who was trying to steal a catalytic converter and was up on a jack. So he jacked the car up, tried to steal a catalytic converter. The jack fell, crushed the guy dead, right? And then you look below it and there was comments and people were like, good, got what he deserved. I'm like, listen, California, you can't do anything about there's no death penalty there at all. And like people feel like, righteous when a dude stealing a catalytic converter is killed. They're like, good. Serves him right. So I think to some degree, there is that part of us that all of us feel like when somebody gets their comeuppance that we feel good about it. One of the stories that I've seen was, did you ever see that gnarly video of that guy? He was like, there was a guy who had been sexually abusing his son for years. He was like a martial arts instructor to his son. And he'd take his son on these trips and everything, all the while raping him, sexually abusing him and everything. So then they found him, arrested him, and they were extraditing him back to his home state. And the dad was on like a phone, pretending incognito as they were walking him from the airport. And then this is back in the day when TSA didn't exist. And then as they were walking him through, the dad turned around with a gun.
I did see that. Yep.
Okay, right. Now, there's a lot of people who watch that and were like, hell yeah, brother, good work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's vengeance. That's what vengeance really is.
Right.
And so, but you never hear that. You never hear that's part of the bill. Like you never hear this is vengeance for those victims.
Exactly. I guess that's kind of the crux of what I'm thinking is that's the real motive, but other motives get talked about as the reason. Vengeance, it's like it has a negative connotation to it, although it's something that appeals to all of us. Like, look, as you can tell, I have a couple other reasons that I want to get to also as to why the death penalty might not be the right move. Mm-hmm. And as I'm saying this, I'm also recognizing that I had the luxury of not having somebody close to me right now that's been sexually abused. And that, I think my ability to be pragmatic about this would go right out the window if someone that I love, especially one of my, nieces and nephews got abused, and I would be singing a very different tune, and I recognize that. But I'm also recognizing that even though I can relate to that, and even though that I could see myself getting to that level of anger or wanting retribution, or even the classic 5 minutes alone in a locked cell thing that everybody says, like I can totally relate to that. Kill the person, but like that. I still think that there are some reasons that need to override that emotional vengeance-based response.
Would you say then that, like, based on that, it's possible that Senator Book may have a different opinion about this if she herself had never been sexually abused?
It's pretty, that's a reasonable possibility.
Okay, so in that regard then, this, I hate to use this silly word, but the trauma associated with that sexual abuse,
trauma gets to apply in that case. That's a correct use of that term.
Just so
overused. I know
word. So the trauma associated with the sexual abuse has I guess it evoked a level of emotion such that your thoughts are now are binded to that emotion, that emotional response to that, whatever that subject matter is, sexual abuse in general.
Yeah.
And then your thoughts are now going to be overshadowed by that emotion that's attached to that trauma. And without that trauma having happened, you may make different decisions. Is that kind of fair to say?
I would agree.
Okay. So in that regard, here's my only, I guess, issue with that is like, look, I don't know. I don't think this is really going to stop or deter would-be future sex offenders. And the reason why is because when they're committing their crimes, number one, like you said, they think they're going to get away with it. And number two, they are also experiencing that, but in a different way. It's not trauma that is guiding their emotional dysregulation that's leading to distorted thinking that then drives this weird behavior. It's I have these distorted thoughts that are evoking these really weird emotions. Those emotions are driving behavior, and they're tied to like sexual gratification as well. And so the same thing is if you take certain people out of that, which is a lot of what we do in therapy, is to try to get them to regulate that emotion, to try to think a little bit more clearly and slow that process down, so they can interject some replacement thoughts that are going to evoke different emotions and drive obviously more pro-social behaviors. It's essentially the same exact thing. Like, those guys are not going to think about, I'm going to get put to death for this crime. That's not going to enter their headspace, because that trope of, well, you should have thought about X, Y, and Z when you were committing your crime never applies, because that was the furthest thing from their headspace at the time. I'd say they're incapable of thinking about those things because of the emotionally driven decisions that they're making. And so it's on the other side, then vengeance is kind of following through with, it's an emotionally based decision, and I feel better about this person being put to death. And so, yeah, the world's a better place ultimately because this dude's, I guess you can make that argument. People can agree or disagree with that, but it very much is an emotionally based decision, which all of these guys are making emotionally based decisions. Nobody's, thinking this out super clearly. So, I'm not saying it's the exact same way of thinking. I'm saying, yeah, these are all emotionally based decisions, which are crap in the first place. And so, is it the, I don't know. I want to say right. Is it the most effective way of dealing with this problem? I don't know.
Yeah, I just wanted to underscore the point you made about because we hear that all the time. We hear it in our own field still, that you should have thought about that before you did X, and that just doesn't show up with a lot of the guys we talk to because of the reasons that you underlined. And so if we can at least temporarily put the recidivism deterrence to bed and maybe shift to the vengeance piece, that's where, as much as I can empathize and say, like, yeah, if someone in my family had that happen, I would be singing a very different tune probably. I might even still hold the opinion that death penalty isn't good for sex offenders while still fully advocating a chance to kill the person myself.
Yeah.
And so I get that. That's 100% right there. And, Senator Book, actually feels kind of weird even taking it personal to her. So maybe I shouldn't do that, but just a victim of sexual abuse in general that does agree with that. There's going to be a lot out there. I'm sure that there are some listeners that have unfortunately been abused, and you may well think that would be true justice. Your life is compromised. Maybe you haven't been the same since. It's ruined your capacity for intimacy. It's given you flashbacks and, made life unlivable, and the justice would be ending the life of the perpetrator that probably got off easier than you did being the victim. And so there's that. And then, but the part that bothers me about it is that I know for a fact, an absolute fact, because I know a lot of people that fit this category of victims of sexual abuse that have since come around and forgiven the person that victimized them, believe it or not, and formed relationships with them of their own volition, of their own desire. And because a lot of times it's right in the family, and also I really worry. So victims of sexual abuse, as most people know, a lot of times they unfortunately blame themselves for sexual offending. And sometimes they get shit from their own family for reporting the abuser. And, you and I do reunification with families, and, we've seen it to where the victim is kind of getting iced out of the family, and pressure is put on them to get over it. It's ugly, and our job as therapists for both the perpetrator and the victim is to try to make that go off and as much of a healing experience as possible. But I wonder if, some poor young child that is now aware of this death penalty law, if this child is old enough to understand what that means, and then they're currently being victimized by a family member that they hate what's happening to them, but they're conflicted because they still love their uncle, they still love their dad, and in their mind they're like, well, if I report this, they're going to kill my dad. And now the victim, who might otherwise have reported this prior to the death penalty being an option, sits on it, potentially allowing the abuse to carry on further, and things are complicated. That would be a true tragedy.
Or if it plays out further to the degree that the victim does report it, and then say their father is convicted and then subsequently put to death, and then obviously this would happen. So the abuse would happen to them when they were, let's say 10, right, or younger. And then based on the appeals process, they probably would be in their 30s when their father were put to death, right? And they may not share Senator Book's opinion on this any longer. Like they may have a different, they may have a different way of viewing this, or a different perspective following their own like recovery from this whole thing. And they may be in a point where they want to forgive this person and even potentially invite them back into their life. And then now they're put to death. And now that victim has to live with the knowledge that their admission and reporting of this is what ultimately led to, is clearly the offender's behavior that led to this. But the victim may feel that, hey, because I reported this, I killed my dad, and and at the end of the day, re-victimizing that person all over again. That would be pretty tragic.
It's another layer of tragedy on top of something that was already horrific.
Yeah, I mean, because if
we
you just
do reunification with these families,
yeah, they do reunification, and successfully a lot of the times. And I wonder, I wonder what the parameters of that would be. I mean, because it's really based on all the articles that you've given, it's kind of unclear what the exact purpose of this, besides vengeance and feeling better about it. I mean, if it is that and everybody's in agreement with it, then okay. I mean, like I don't live in Florida, so it's not really.
Let's call it that then.
Well, right, yeah. But I mean that if that's really what it is, then say that, and you can have that opinion. Like I'm not trying to say your opinion's wrong or right or anything like that. That's not really what I'm getting into, because that's irrelevant to what this is about. I'm saying, you say, oh, no, I think if you abuse a child, you should be put to death, the end. And it is about vengeance because the world's a better place. Okay, problem solved. If the attempt is made, which I think they kind of do say that, not that they'll feel better, but that they should be put to death, as if it's like a moral imperative that this does happen. I just, there's nothing in there, even from the lawmakers, that I think they assume this is going to deter crime from future offenders. Right. So that's it.
So, and I'm with you. Like, if that's your opinion, that's your opinion, and like understandable. And again, until I thought a little further on it, based on what you just got through saying, I mean, I might have shared that opinion at one point in time, and that's the thing is like, if your opinion is that they deserve it, they deserve to be put to death, I guess I would just ask you to take a moment and consider the kind of the victim impact component to it. And because again, there really are, it might be hard to believe if you're not like in the field or haven't personally experienced it, but there are a lot of people, families that come together. The hypothetical that you gave is a very real world, day-to-day occurrence. If you're in this type of, therapy, this our world. And if you're going to put your name, or I guess you're if you're going to be behind something that involves taking another person's life, I guess just make sure that you've considered all angles. Mm-hmm. And if you have, and you still hold that opinion, I get it.
Yeah. It's really weird because the other thing is the dynamics of how victims are going to feel about this is different with every person. I mean, you remember the Larry Nassar case, right? The
gymnast.
Yeah, the gymnast coach who was sexually abused, hundreds of girls, right?
Yeah.
So one of his early victims, there's some really good really sad documentaries about it. But one of his early victims, I think it may have been his first one. I believe she was his next door neighbor. And so he had been sexually abusing her for a number of years, and she told her parents, and her parents initially believed her, or no, maybe they didn't believe her. One way or another, they eventually did not believe her. And imagine this, they made her apologize to him for accusing him of these things, right? So, and then as a young kid, now, obviously this fractured their family, because now this girl's living with this, this thing that she did tell, and their parents didn't ultimately believe her and then made her apologize to this. And so she eventually disconnected from her whole family, right? And now when Larry Nassar was discovered to have done this, and this all came out and it was true, out of I believe what would be guilt, her father eventually killed himself.
Oh, damn.
Because and she said, I was really mad that my dad wasn't killing this guy and wasn't beating the shit out of him because, because he should be my protector. He should be there for me. Right. And I'm like, so, but I've heard stories that, why would you, so plenty of dads will say, if somebody ever did that to my daughter, I'd do X, Y, and Z to him. And then the question is, well, yeah, but then if you get caught, you're going to go to prison. Do you want your daughter to have a dad who's in prison? And it's like, yeah, but so even then, even if you're a dad who would do that, that still is based on you, right? Like that's you are saying, I cannot live with the idea that this person did this to my daughter, and out of a sense of vengeance and righteousness, I'm going to cause harm to him, if not death to him. And I don't really care about my freedoms because that's what's right.
You're saying they're making the choice. It's about them, and they're making that choice. Even though they're doing it for their daughter, they're choosing to override
because there's arguments against that it's for your daughter. And the guy might say, well, I would rather my daughter be angry at me for being in prison and not being present in her life than my daughter be angry at me for not defending her. And you do a quick cost benefit analysis and you make that decision, and there you go. But ultimately that's about you. That's not about your daughter, which I think all decisions are kind of about that, but that's what I'm saying is that's why you do it. So weird situation to be put in. I mean, I don't know. And this eliminates that layer. This eliminates that layer. It says, oh, it's a law. You know what I mean? And then people don't have to take that on themselves because now the government's going to step in and do this. And so that personal sense of vengeance is no longer there. You don't have to follow through and you don't have to run that risk. And people can all feel great because ultimately homeboy's put to death and the citizens rejoice, I guess,
I would, and again, this isn't answerable because you're going to get yes, no's, maybes, but because I think it said it was for kids under the age of 12, and so like
12 and under, which would be a child.
And so like if we're looking for something that checks all the boxes, it checks the deterrence box if possible. It at least checks the recidivism box, certainly, and also the vengeance, a proper way to express the horror of something truly terrible. What about the life in prison option? As like I guess I wonder if victims that would be pro death penalty and that the families of victims that would be pro death penalty would find life in prison without the possibility of parole to be an adequate compromise that potentially backfills some of the problems that you and I are talking about with the death penalty. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a weird set of news. We'll have to see. Obviously, it's going to go to the Supreme Court if it gets signed by Governor DeSantis. So it's not. I mean, this will be an evolving story that we'll have to check in with a little bit later on. But, well, I got a quick story out of Miami as well, out of Florida too. Breaking news, by the way.
All right.
I don't know. Do you remember this little banger?
Yes.
As a resident of Miami-Dade County, it is your right to know the names and likenesses of sex offenders living in your area. As a public service, we have created this videotape so that you and your friends and family can stay aware, stay safe, and maybe even have a little fun. Enjoy.
Miami-Dade County presents the 1988 Miami-Dade County Sex Offender Registry.
The state of Florida has asked us to disclose our sexual crimes to you. We were bad, but now we're good. We're moving into your neighborhood. You know we're trying our best to be functioning members of society. We're not here to start no trouble. We're legally required to do the sex offender shuffle.
I'm Larry Arthauer, and I'll refrain from touching my neighbor's kids again. What I did was not too kind, but I'm a nice guy, you'll come to find. I've got a backyard and a real nice pool. Y'all should come over for a barbecue. We can make some cold drinks in my blender, but do keep in mind that I'm a sex offender.
Vernon Douglas is my name. My battery arrest is what brought me fame. But there's much more to know about me. I love to dance and I love to ski. I zip and zoom on through the snow. Just strap on my boots and watch me go. But I can't ski until December. Till then I'm just a sex offender.
I'm Charles Dolan, dropping rhymes. I've been arrested 7 times. I know that sounds like a lot. 3 of those times were for vandalism. Feel real bad, I got caught. Might do it again, probably not. I'm not here to make pretenses. I'm here because of my sex offenses.
I'm Sam Pound, I'm number 1. Apologizing for what I've done. In case you were wondering what that was, I snuck into a bathroom and I... Eat no truffles, I'm just here to do the sex offender shuffle.
Into a bathroom.
Like, what could he have said?
I know.
Hey everybody, I'm Laura Hughes, proving girls can do it too. And by it, I mean touch your cousin. Was it worth it? No, it wasn't. You won't find me in your child's playset, cause I gotta wear this ankle bracelet. I'm not here to go on a bender, I'm here because I'm a sex offender.
Last name Bermholt, first name Mark. I'm moving in somewhere on your block. Not in a house, but in a van. If you need me to move it, I sure can. The last thing I want is any trouble. I've learned my lesson from the sex offender shuffle.
He's all off.
I'm the one they call Arthur Chase. They said I didn't have to show my face. My first trial ended in a hung jury. If I'm found guilty, they'll unblur me. I'm not the necrophiliac Arthur Chase. That's a different Arthur Chase. I'm not here to be my own defender. I'm here because I'm possibly a sex offender.
Okay, real quick, I'm not like these people. Okay, this is an extortion plot by my ex-wife, who's the only witness, and she's trying to take away my kids. And I'm not here to pack my duffel. I'm just here to do the sex offender shuffle.
That dude's in every group.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
We were bad, but now we're good.
If they really made... Dude, you could only get away with this in Florida.
The crimes for which we were convicted. We're not here to start no trouble. We're legally required to do the sex offender shuffle.
That's man.
Yeah, it was. It is, and the first person to show that to me was one of my clients. I love, dude, how he's like looking down her neck. Look at that, all those things. So, sad. This is a sad story, actually.
But we're ending on a positive note.
Yeah,
Jesus, man.
Keeping laugh. That is positive. The headline, I don't know. This is from 2020. KeepLaughingForever.com. I don't know how credible of a source this is. Says during the 1980s in Miami, law authorities thought it would be a good idea to disclose all the sex offenders in the area. This is a fairly common occurrence around the world. However, what isn't common is that these sex offenders were forced to reveal their crimes in a song and dance form called the Sex Offender Shovel.
That's clearly a skit.
Okay, so after watching this, you probably figured out that I love whilst. That's such a weird word. Whilst the music video is hilarious, it is also not real. The Sex Offender Shuffle is actually a parody of a music video called the Super Bowl Shuffle that the 1985 Chicago Bears performed. The song showcased all the players and generated hype around the team. Blah, 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 blah. Sex Offender Shuffle was created by comedian Scott Gardner. Many young viewers who are not familiar with the original Super Bowl Shuffle thought the sex offender shuffle was a real thing that happened in the 1980s. Scott happily perpetuated these rumors by answering various questions under different names on platforms such as Reddit and ensured fans that the story was legit. So,
That's funny.
Breaking news.
Good follow-up.
That's not real. Sorry, everybody. I know that's disappointing to you. So, well, yeah, we'll have to. I guess we'll on next sex offense news episode. We'll have to see what's going on with this law. Yeah, it'll be several months, if not years, before we see any progress. So,
right.
Okay, cool. Bye, everybody. And that's a wrap on another episode of the Guerrilla Social Work Podcast. Thanks for listening, you savvy socialites. We hope we've provided you with enough ammo to take down the social work giants and start your own clinical revolution. But before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your earfuls of knowledge. And if you're feeling extra generous, share us with a friend, or 2, or 20, to help spread the guerrilla warfare tactics far and wide. We'd like to stay and chat longer, but we're lying. Good night.